know what, Jamie? Let's pop off right now. We got to get started.
We got to go.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's get the people in the chat. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uwiyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Thursday, January 11th, and we've got a mega mailbag show. The Irish Sports Daily subscribers have a ton of questions for us today. Put out the bat signal yesterday, and they came through. We've got about 30 questions, so it's going to be a bit of a long one today. We're strapped in. We're ready to go. Obviously, there's a ton of news out there. Nick Saban is having a press conference right now about his retirement from college football. Jamie, you were pretty surprised. I think everyone was just kind of like, yeah, he's gone. Like he's going to retire. John Bryce reported yesterday for Football Scoop that he was interviewing candidates the same day for assistant coaching positions at Alabama. That's these guys are different, man. They are built different than the rest of us. And it's just been reported right now that Dan Lanning is staying at Oregon, so he is not going to be the guy for Alabama going forward. So that's interesting. So we're going to talk about all those things, and we're going to get to everyone's questions. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If this is your first time catching us, or if you've caught us a bunch of times and you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to this channel. Please hit the notification bell so you know whenever it is we are going live. Rajon has hit the button, the like button, with full confidence. Rajon has smashed the like button. He has full confidence in doing so, and so please do that for us as well. That really helps. And if you want to have some more confidence in the way that you dress, what you can do is you can hit up ESQclothing.com, which has created the world's first bamboo dress shirt crafted from high-quality bamboo fabric. It's the softest and most comfortable shirt you'll ever put on. Not only more sustainable than cotton, but also feels cooler, has stretch, is odor and wrinkle resistant, and it's even machine washable. You've seen ESQ's one-piece collar bamboo dress shirt on all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches, and it's the perfect shirt for today's business meeting or heading for a night out. Use ISD15 and get 15% off all online items. That's ISD15 for 15% off all online items. Jamie, the first question here, let's throw it up. This is from Irish Bronx. If you were Bama, who do you hire? Right? So Dan Lanning has pulled his name. Whether he was offered the job, right? We don't know that for sure. But he has pulled his name. He's going to stay at Oregon. And so where do you go from here? Right? And I think there's a lot of names out there. A name that I would keep an eye on is Sark over at Texas. I think Lane Kiffin is probably a name out there. I saw Mike Norvell floated yesterday. But where do you think, Jamie? Where would you be looking if you were Alabama looking to fill these shoes?
I think you got to look at someone that you think is going to be in college football for the long haul. So I wouldn't hire anyone that I thought was maybe going to go to the pros at any point, or was like had an eye to that. I would think of someone that you're not going to. The odds of you getting another Saban in terms of like someone who's going to be there 17 years, let's like very low, right? But yeah, I think you want somebody who's going to be there. You think that can be there for a decade, right? That can be there for a decade. So someone who's like, I don't know, relatively young. You don't want to. That's why the Dabo doesn't make any sense, really, right? Even though Dabo's younger than you think, because he's not as old or whatever. But Dabo's also kind of like a guy who's extremely set in his ways and does not seem adaptable to as adaptable as a lot of these other guys to like the new world of college football. So I would look at someone who has been adaptable, has shown that they're adaptable to that. So that's why I think Kiffin and Sark make sense. Not just that they have a, Alabama connection, but both those guys have like shown like they are very much like forward thinking in terms of how they approach like roster construction. They really, really care about recruiting. They care about getting like quality assistants and guys that really, really care about recruiting and recruit at a high level. They got a lot of like former Alabama staffers on their staff, right? So they've obviously attracted a lot of those guys that have worked for Saban, right? So I think those guys make sense. I think it kind of would make sense if I could see them going off the board with like some other like young rising guy or whatever, but I think for the most part, it probably makes sense for those guys the most. Like Lanning would have made perfect sense if he wanted to. But I mean, I doubt he actually got offered, but it also is like he's got a really good thing going there. I don't know why you would leave. I don't know why you would leave. It's like you just spent this time building up Oregon. And I'm like, I think also how they're built in now the Big Ten is they're kind of set up well to do well.
It's interesting. Like my question is who does Saban want? Like because to me, he must have an idea, right, of who the best person is, and like he's not just gonna be like, all right, well, like I'm out, so good luck with the search. Like I think it matters who he wants, and if there's someone that he has like who he wants it to be, then he's gonna be the one who I don't want to say makes the call, but like he's gonna be the one to make the pitch. And is that person going to turn down Nick Saban? Right? Like it just doesn't seem like it to me. So like for me, Lanning, it's like you talk to him, but like I don't think Dan Lanning told Nick Saban like, no, I'm good. Like I don't think that happened, right? And so I don't know that it ever got to that point with Dan Lanning. But like like you mentioned, like I think Lanning makes perfect sense on the one hand. But on the other hand, like he is a little young for it. Like I think they would want someone who's a little bit older, right? Like even Lane, he's been around, right? Like he knows how to handle Alabama. Like I think Lane Kiffin in Alabama would like be a ton of fun. Like I just think that would be so much fun. Just for the sport and just for like what because he's such a like a personality, right? And that's such like a good time,
He'd be an easy villain, right? To point,
but he's like an easy villain, but he's like also fun.
Oh, but people like him too, right? It's like, well, that's the thing with Nick Saban, right? And it's like what I wrote about in 6 Thoughts. It's like he was a villain to people because he won, like because he chewed out coaches. It definitely wasn't because he chewed out coaches on the sidelines, because a million guys have done that, and it's just like. It's because he won more than everyone else. It's like, oh yeah, I saw someone mention about, oh, he got the bag man. It's like, yeah, so does everybody else. Everybody else had the bag man. Didn't matter. He did it better than everybody else.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there is no comparison to be like, to getting caught the way that Michigan did and the way to whatever Bama did compared to even like some of like the stuff like Ole Miss was doing or whatever with Hugh Freeze or whatever. Like it's just different. And I just I don't know. I just think Nick Saban built up such a beast. I don't see, unless they just absolutely just bone the hire in the worst way, which I just think it's impossible because there's too many good coaches that would want to do it. Is the next guy going to be as good as Saban? Probably not. Like very low chance that it'd be even close. But if he goes there and wins a natty within 5 years, it's a win. You know what I mean? It's a win for that guy. And that's probably what someone is going to do because it's just set up that way. And I was thinking about it as everyone's like, oh man, look at all these people going to be poaching people off of Alabama's roster. It could happen. And, there could be some guys who leave. Those guys are probably we're already thinking about leaving anyways, right? Like is the way that I would look at it, because they have to know that the next guy is going to be a damn good coach. Like there's going to be different assistants to come in. I would think there's going to be way more chaos to whoever leaves. like, so just say Lane leaves Ole Miss. Man, they just signed all these dudes in the portal for big. Like, are those guys going to flip to Bama now? Like, are those guys going to stick somewhere? Are they going to different places? Like, who knows, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think there's going to be more chaos probably there than whoever takes over at Bama.
Yeah, and I think like people look at it only from the standpoint of like guys are going to leave Bama, but let's say it's Sark, right? Well, he might bring some guys from Texas, and it's not like Texas is a poverty program, like they could bring some guys over, right? So I think like Quinn Ewers, right? Like he just announced he's coming back. Like he announced he's coming back to Texas, but like what he's really saying is I'm not going pro, right? And anyone could transfer for any reason at this point, given the ruling that just went down. You don't need to. It doesn't matter how many times you've transferred at this point. You can just go. So that's just something to monitor, right? Like it's something to just keep an eye on. And so yeah, I just think in my opinion, the ties to Alabama from Steve Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin, like I think those are the two strongest ones. If it gets beyond that, like I'd be shocked if it got beyond that. But if it did, then you look at like Mike Norvell and guys like that, right? Anyone but Dabo is so like Dabo's out, right? Like the fan base is not going to stand for it. But that's what you talked about. Like we're just talking about a villain. Like that's a villain who's like people don't like and is also unfun,
Yeah.
And so like people,
unfun.
yeah, so people don't like that, right? So I mean that's not what Nick Saban was. So.
Also, what does it say about the job and how good it is how good Saban made the job that Mike Norvell, who like 99.9% of programs would be like, Mike Norvell? Hell yeah. Like I'd want him. They're like, he might be 4th or 5th on the list. Like that's crazy. That's crazy, but that's just where they're at.
The Athletic just broke the story. ESPN used fake names to secure Emmys for college game day stars. Pete Sampson just tweeted. That's awesome.
Well,
that's good stuff. That's fantastic. Just an absolute
seems extremely Hollywood.
We'll monitor that as this show continues. All right, moving on. Next question from Irish Bronx. If Jalen Sneed finds a linebacker starting role, which position is most likely? I would say Will. Where are you at with this?
Yeah, it'd have to be Will. I've kind of mentioned, Rover is not a starting position anymore.
Yeah,
like it's you can play a lot as a Rover depending on whatever, but Notre Dame's not going to face a lot of teams that play 12 personnel. Nickel is a starting position compared to Rover. So, I mean, Thomas Harper played way more snaps than Jack Kaiser last year. So that's just the way to kind of view it. And he played 2 less games. Yeah,
it seems like Will is the way to go. It's just there's 2 spots, and we have a question later about who we think the starting linebackers are going to be. It's actually kind of interesting. It's an interesting conversation, so we'll talk about that in a second. Matt 01. I expect many of the 2025 recruits to rise up in the rankings. Who do you think has the potential for a Bryce Young type rise up in the rankings this year? I guess who's committed, but is there anyone who Notre Dame is in on who you feel like, man, that they're gonna take a big jump?
I mean, I'll just stick with the guys who are committed for now, and I'll just say like Will Black, I think has a chance to really move up like big. Yeah. I think he's going to be. There's a very good chance he's going to be considered one of the top tackles in the class. When all said and done, he really has just outstanding tools. Funny that it's Bryce Young was the guy. Could be, I think Flanagan. I think could be absolutely a guy who goes up. He's really a heck of an athlete and like a way better blocker than people realize. So I think he's a guy who could go way up. And then the other guy for me is Reef. Like I really think I'm big fan of his. Thought he looked outstanding as a junior, really took a big jump. And I think he's another guy who's only going to get bigger, stronger and really take a big leap. Those would be the three at the top of my list out of the commits.
Yeah. Xander brought up kind of the dominoes of losing, or like the dominoes that are about to fall in college football. So just hang with that. We're gonna get to that in a little bit, Xander. It's a good question for a day like today, because I do think there are going to be there's going to be some fallout now, and not just that, but like it's just that once things start to fall, it's not the job, it's the job that opens up because other people left for other jobs, right? Like that's how it happens, and so it's kind of hard to project that stuff out, but that's going to be, it's an interesting time now for Notre Dame and all of college football. JW Black asks, was Jamie able to find any intel on the new strength coach? Have you talked to your cousin?
Guys, no. I'm just going to tell you right now because I've had like people DMing me about this. As soon as I have it, I will make it public. But I do not have anything. So just so you know, I mean, or whatever. I don't care. People can keep asking. That's fine. But I will share it as soon as I have it.
Does this man not have an email? I need we get an email address from Jamie's cousin.
I mean, I don't even want to tell you this guy's like a Luddite, but like, but he's got like a burner phone right now. So
he's on a burner. He's in a bunker. Yeah. He's in a bunker somewhere. Someone hacked his phone. He's gone dark. He's gone dark. That's fine. You know, we look, people, hang in there. The news is coming. Can't wait. We're waiting with bated breath over here. JPDOC 31. Way too early positional buy, sell, hold, or grades for after signing day defections and portal additions group by group. Let's try to go through this quickly. All right. So are you buying quarterback for Notre Dame? Buy, sell, hold quarterback for Notre Dame in 2024?
I mean, I'm buying quarterback. I'll just say that I'm not selling anything. There's nothing.
You're not selling. We're only holding. I think we'd only hold offensive line and maybe wide receiver.
Yeah, I would say hold wide receiver, and then you could put if you want to put linebacker there, just because it's a lot of youth or whatever. That's fine,
yeah,
or whatever, right? But I think all those have a chance to be buys, whatever, by the season. So that's why I think they're all holds. But like no one. I mean, I guess you could say you could sell the O-line because Fisher didn't come back.
Yeah.
Right. And if Fisher came back, then it would be a different story or whatever. And that leaves more uncertainty. But other than that, so anyways, back to your original thing, quarterback. Yes, I would buy. I mean, you feel better about Steve Angeli today than you did, a couple months ago. And you added Riley Leonard and CJ Carr. So bye.
It's just like it's a great room. Like honestly, like with Riley Leonard and Steve Angeli, Minchie, CJ Carr, like that's just a great room. Period. Just like, and look, the chances of it being that after spring, I don't know what they are, but there's a good chance that one of them is not around, at least, and so like that's just a good situation, and to go forward, like you say, sell offensive line, maybe, like I don't know, like since we're doing like the kind of the buy sell thing, like I don't know what the current price is, like how do people, what are we selling from, like I don't know, like I think a lot of people are very just kind of wary about the offensive line, right? So it almost might be like a buy situation from what people kind of think it is, right? It could be that. I don't know that it's that, but
and not to get on JP Doc's question, because whatever, like I appreciate anyone asking questions, but like I just don't really think buy, sell, hold kind of fits for kind of at this time. Like,
yeah,
I think you look at where we feel about the things heading into the spring, and then after the spring, that's more of a time to ask, or after fall camp, that's more of the time to ask about where do you feel about compared to how you felt about it now, because right now everything, I mean, you could say everything is a hold until you see it more of it,
right. What I would say is just like kind of get to the spirit of the question, and not because, like you said, it's hard to go position by position. But what I would say is I'm buying the Notre Dame football team in 2024. That's what I would say. It's like I think the team as a whole, like just the way the schedule is and the way that they are set up and how everything seems to kind of line up, with the exception of the offensive line. Like that's the only thing where it's like I need to know how they look there. But beyond that, like I do buy this team. I think there's just a lot of like really good pieces in a lot of key areas. So that's where I would come out mostly on this question. So, Andy Matt 01, another question. Which Notre Dame commits targets look like Fab 50 guys for 2025?
This is another one where I think you just got to kind of wait because one, man, I just been like spending time with like portal guys and all that too. So I still have to do like finish the 2024, the final 2024 Fab 50. So I haven't really dived into some of the other guys for the Fab 50 yet. The one thing I'll say is that like, I mean, Deuce Knight is, pretty strong candidate for Notre Dame. And then I would say out of the other commits, I don't know if there's another guy that I would say, like, I would say that it's not like guys couldn't end up there eventually, but so I have like, so Will Black, who I mentioned before, and like Ivan Taylor, I think that I would have them as top 100 guys for me, but I just think that they're below Fab 50, that level at this time. And I don't know. We'll see with some of the other guys.
I'm going to get a question from Rajon in the chat. Does Riley Leonard's style help convince Angeli to stick around due to injury? He hasn't really gotten injured due to his style. Like he got hurt. He got rolled up on like a scramble, where he just got like, it was like one of those hip drop tackles. And it's just, everyone gets hurt on those, right? Like, I don't think that I don't view Riley Leonard is like injury prone at all. So that's just kind of how I see it. So yeah, I don't think it matters. We'll get into Steve Angeli later because there's a bunch of questions about him, and so I have some thoughts on that situation. Torn is O'Daly, I think. How surprised are you at Kyron's NFL success so far? He was a great college back, but the criticism that he was lacked NFL measurables. I figured he'd have Theo Riddick's type career. Never envisioned a Pro Bowl season as running back one. Glad I'm wrong. Are you surprised by this, Jamie?
I'm not really surprised because I think that's crazy to say. At best, he'd carve out Theo Riddick. Theo Riddick was a really good player for Notre Dame. Kyron Williams was a much better player than Theo Riddick. Like, Kyron Williams, in my opinion, is the best back of the Brian Kelly era, right? Like, if you're just looking at the top level guy, he was the best. He was the best back that they had. And I think he showed what he could do in terms of being a number one back. Like, did I think that he could do it over? I mean, I didn't know, but I thought it was a possibility. I did think it was a possibility. Did I think he was going to be second in the NFL in rushing in year two? No. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say that, but I definitely thought he had a chance to be a starting running back. Like, it doesn't surprise me that he ended up becoming the starter for them because one, even though he's small, he plays big. He does all these other things really, really well, like catches the ball really well. He can block. He can play every down. He's good short yardage back. He's just tough. He's smart, super competitive. Like, I mean, you never know how long a running back is going to last in the NFL because there's been a lot of guys that, it's year 5 and it's done. So I hope that, I mean, he didn't even have a fully healthy year this year.
Yeah.
So I hope he's able to just continue to stay healthy enough that he has a decent career. But I don't know. I'm not that surprised.
I'm not surprised that he's a one, like you said. Like it's funny too how everything that they said about him when he entered college was the same thing they said about him as he entered the pros, and it was incorrect both times. Like there's a clip that I found. Mike Farrell was talking about him. It's like, yeah, he's a third down back, change of pace guy, and he was running slot routes at some rivals camp. It's like, yeah, that's what he is, right? Like he's and there's always like he's never going to be like a 20 carry guy, and of course he was, right? And he was a bell cow, and then he went pro, and then you hear there was a clip of of Todd McShay, basically saying the same thing. Like, he's a third down guy. Like he's a utility player, tough. He's a good, good pass blocker, can catch the ball. He's not going to be your number one. And so then he goes, and obviously he's the number one. Now, the thing I am surprised about is like this he's going to be like second team all pro, like not even Pro Bowl. Like a lot of guys make the Pro Bowl, right? Like it's just, people get hurt, you get named to the Pro Bowl team. Like this, we're talking like all pro. Like as good, like Kyren Williams at this point is like as good of a pick as Kyle Hamilton was. And Kyle Hamilton was underrated, right? Like Kyle Hamilton, there's two players in the 2022 first round that made all pro in their second season. Kyle Hamilton is one, and Smith for the offensive lineman for Dallas. Like they're both first team all pro. They're the only two, right? Kyren Williams, he's second team. So basically I think he would be first team if they use two running backs, but one of the spots is a fullback. So he's not going to get that. But like he'll make second team all pro. Get rid of the full pro list. Like Kyren Williams.
Whatever. I'm not. Kyle Juszczyk is a great player. Whatever. I don't want to disparage his player, but name another candidate for it. He's like the only fullback in the friggin' league. Like there's like 7 fullbacks in the league. You know what I mean? Or the only fullback in the league who would actually be a contender for it. You know what I mean? So it's just like it's stupid. It's dumb. Like most teams don't play with a fullback. So it's just I don't know, but yeah. Anyways,
I don't think it's right. It's like second tight end. It's why are we doing that? Super chat from Justin Knox. Toughest game in the schedule next season: USC, FSU, A&M. This should be a first round host for the playoffs next season. That's how I see it. Do you guys agree? I think the toughest game might be the opener against A&M. The thing about it is like that's tough. Going to USC is always difficult, whether they're good or whether they stink. Like it's always a difficult game for Notre Dame. But just like sitting here, like I think Mike Elko's going to have those guys ready to go, and that place is going to be jumping. So that's what I think. What do you think, Jamie?
I think it's kind of hard to say. I have no idea. Like Louisville might be the toughest game next year.
Yeah,
it might actually be because I don't know how good USC, FSU, or A&M are going to be, and that's really the thing is that I mean A&M, it's going to be a tough environment, but and they added all these guys from the portal. How many of those guys are going to be impact guys? And even some of the guys that they added, like a bunch of guys who were like half of the guys they've added are like group of 5 / FCS guys who are younger-ish players. Sometimes those guys hit, and sometimes they end up being great. I don't know. I mean, how are all those guys? Maybe those guys are going to be great 2025 or whatever. But, the jump to the SEC is a big jump. So the kid they got from San Diego State, who started as a freshman and was a really good player, I mean, you ain't playing against the Mountain West anymore. It's a big jump. So, and it's not to say that he won't be a great player or an NFL player. He just might not be an impact player from day one for, when Notre Dame has to play them. So I think they got all these new pieces and it's a new staff and it's week 1. So it's so hard to say what to expect from them at that point. And USC, like the thing is with USC is they could be awesome on offense again. I mean, I expect them to be at the very least very good. They'll probably be like top 15 offense at bare minimum, probably top 10 because that's what Lincoln Riley does all the time. But they have a way tougher schedule this year than they've had in years. So they got LSU, Michigan, Wisconsin, Penn State, Washington, UCLA on the schedule before they played Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, that's like a way tougher schedule than Notre Dame's playing. And I think I still think they got a lot of depth issues on the offensive defensive lines. What if they're really beat up then? Right. Like, I don't know. So I think that's a a kind of a question of where they're going to be. And I just think too that with like Florida State, they're losing so much, and they are. I mean, would you say that DJ Uiagalelei is on the same level as the way Jordan Travis was playing? No, I wouldn't. I mean, I don't think he's definitely a decent quarterback. Like, he's above average quarterback, but he's a different quarterback and not someone you have to worry about as much as Jordan Travis, in my opinion. And they've taken a bunch of guys that I think are their portal guys this year are like guys who were super high recruits. Maybe these guys are going to be just absolute studs, but maybe they're not going to be studs next year. Maybe they're going to be like the kind of the year after kind of thing, right? Like, so like for USC this year, Anthony Lucas, this might be the year for Anthony Lucas, but last year was not the year for Anthony Lucas, right? So that's the way I kind of see it with those teams. Like, I think that FSU is going to take a step back. So they might be a top 20 team, but probably not a top 5, like and if you look at like the way too early, rankings and stuff, and I know those are dumb and they usually don't mean anything, but like Notre Dame's the highest ranked team out of all those teams, right? So are any of these teams going to be playoff teams? I don't know. And that kind of goes back to Justin's question about whether or not they can host the playoff. It's like, well, I mean, health and all that kind of stuff is going to matter, how they do in those games. But I mean, the schedule wise, there's no reason they shouldn't be like at least 11-1, I think.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I was buying them earlier, because it's like it sets up right much more so than like other teams, other schools on the schedule. USMA 95. Can recruits who just signed with Alabama leave based on Saban retirement? And are there any that the Irish would be interested in? Same with potential players that may now enter the portal. Or is Notre Dame content with the roster is right now? I know there are 5 or 6 over the 85 right now, so not sure we can add many more. Just wondering. I never am concerned about where they are scholarship wise. That's not I never think about it for 1 second. They will always get to 85 at least, and they'll usually end up under.
They'll be
frankly.
under,
yeah, they'll be under that. As far as Alabama guys, they can go. So their coach is leaving, right? When you leave, your coach leaves, you're free.
You have 30 days.
You have 30 days to do something. So that's that. I mean, sure, right? Like, Alabama has really good football players. If one of them was interested, one of them who plays and is good, is interested in coming to Notre Dame, like, yeah, like, of course they're going to look, right? And then they'll talk to him. But there's no one that really like jumps out. Like, someone's going to ask about Keon Keeley later. Like, maybe, right? Like, it depends. Where is he at? Like, is he happy there? Like, I think he would have to be happy. Like, he would have to have been unhappy going into it, right? Prior to Nick Saban. If he wanted to be at Alabama,
he'd already be having second thoughts.
He'd already be having second thought. That would have to be the situation, right? And maybe that is true. I don't know. Until we hear that, though, I don't want to speculate on that, because I don't. Yeah. There's no reason for me to believe that's even true. Xander Cruz says, "Hello, Caleb Downs."
Yeah, everyone would want Caleb Downs.
Everyone wants Caleb Downs. Yeah. What I would say is send Chad Bowden down to Mobile, and just have him sit around until he brings back Caleb Downs. That's what I would say. No, that's probably not happening. He'd probably just go to Georgia if he was leaving, because he's from Georgia. So Irish Loyal says, let's pretend that we are in a utopia for a moment, and Zachary, Devin Williams, and Dallas Golden all want to commit to Notre Dame. Do you look at Golden on offense in that situation? Those are 3 top of the board prospects, regardless. Do you take them? But if a big if they all want to come, does it affect the wide receiver board given Golden's versatility? I know it's a crazy thought, but it's entirely possible that Notre Dame's recruiting is going to take off beyond what we are used to, especially if the 24 team has a great year.
I don't think it's that crazy. It just depends. But the next few months are huge, because like you look at like the junior day that they're having, right? And it's like, I think you look at the class, and we've kind of talked about this like off the air, like, you like the players that they've got, but to me, they're obviously don't have as many of like the super top of the board guys out of the commits so far, right? So, I mean, if you're adding those guys, that changes the dynamic, right? It changes the dynamic of of everything. So if you add a bunch of guys from this junior day that are coming up, then it's like, I mean, now you're cooking. Now you're cooking in a different way, right? Yeah. So, I think when they're all these players, and I don't know, like, I know that Matt has mentioned that they have talked to Golden about offense as well. I just think it's just when you start getting at those level of guys, you take them and you figure it out. You just do it, and you just get as many of these studs as possible, and you just figure it out. And I think that's not something that you have to worry about if the guys really want to come.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll see. Xander, Notre Dame did finish high in the recruitment for Caleb Downs, but I think he was always going to be an SEC guy.
Yeah, they were like third. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Alabama, Georgia, and Notre Dame. We'll see. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that's not something I'm counting on. Any transfer fallout from Saban's retirement, namely Keon Keeley? We kind of just mentioned that from TGU Minsky. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Just kind of wait and see, right? We'll see what happens. I think there's going to be a ton of transfers, but do any end up in Notre Dame? That I would not bet on that. CB Irish says odds on Marcus to Bama. I believe they were 22-1 on Bet Online. I guess those are the official odds. I would say
bets on this stuff.
I would say no. Like that's just not. He doesn't fit. Like he's not. He's never coached in the South. He has no ties to the South. I just don't see that now. Like, if Texas opened, would that be a threat? I don't think so. He just doesn't. He just like Marcus Freeman doesn't seem like a guy where it's like we got to go get Marcus Freeman. Like I think he's done well at Notre Dame, but he hasn't done well. Where it's like we got to go get him.
This is the other thing is that, and you saw it with the Texas A&M and Mark Stoops. And I'm not comparing Marcus Freeman to Mark Stoops, but I'm just saying for that specific thing, I mean, Mark Stoops was going to get that job until like basically Texas A&M fans were like, hell no. Like, and that is something that does play a part in all this too. And as much as like Marcus Freeman could kill it at Texas, or he could kill it at Alabama or whatever, if I'm Alabama and they hire Marcus Freeman, they're like, didn't this guy just like have 10 guys on the field against Ohio State? And didn't he lose to Louisville? And they would be pointing at all of these things that went on. Remember when he lost to Marshall? Or they would just be pointing at all these things. He doesn't have enough of cachet yet for people to be like, I'm all in on Marcus Freeman at these other programs, right? Because they also aren't, privy to all these other stuff that, Marcus had to kind of deal with at Notre Dame and what he inherited compared to, what people think that he might have inherited from Brian Kelly or all these other things, right? But it's just, so I just don't think it's like, I mean, I don't think 100%. It's like I saw somebody point out that like, oh, what Greg Byrne hired Nate Oates to be their, to coach, I think, of their basketball team, right? And it was like, well, he was from Buffalo or whatever, and it was like, wow, like just look at that. That hire was like, I mean, the basketball's different than football. Like how it's viewed there, like people are going to scrutinize it way harder. Right. There's a reason why they were like, we got to get Nick Saban. Last time it was like Nick Saban or bust. We're going to give so much money. It's like, because they didn't want to have another situation where they were like hoping for something.
Yeah. Yeah. Justin Knox, another super chat, says, I think OSU is the only job we lose Freeman. I don't think OSU would go for him. I just don't. Like, I don't think he's done well enough for them to be like, yeah, this is an upgrade over Ryan Day. I just don't think that, and it's not, I don't think it's a slight. I just think that's the truth of it. So that's the deal. Duke Sinatra says, Jamie, you indicated earlier this year that you were not very high on Tosh Baker. Do you see anything in the bowl game that changed your mind or gave you more hope about his ability to be a starter at Notre Dame?
I mean, I didn't think he played horrible in the bowl game or anything like that, but I mean, I can't take that game and just say like, man, pencil him in. I can't do that either. I mean, the reason I'm not high on him is because he's been at Notre Dame 4 years. He's never been a contender to start at any of the positions. And like, think about it. And I know he had a year, he had an advantage on Alt and Fisher and didn't do that. So it's like, okay, well then he can't, obviously they got the two guys at tackles. He's not going to start there, whatever. There was never any kind of, I never saw anything from him in practice, never heard anything about him where I was like, well, if one of those guys get down, they got Tosh Baker. Man, he's fine.
Yeah.
Never thought that once in my life, never heard that once in my life. And I've seen him go against 2s and 3s, on defense against Notre Dame and not be a dominant guy, like not even be close to it. Like I get beat by guys that like don't really play that much at Notre Dame. So it's like, I don't know why I'm going to be super confident about him at tackle. And and the other thing is too, is like people say like, oh, he's only a tackle, whatever. Nah, he could have played at guard. They try to give him a shot at guard and he didn't win the job. He couldn't beat out, Pat Coogan or Rocco Spindler, who, didn't really play either of them play that well for Notre Dame this year. So I just think that, where at people shouldn't be confident in Baker. It's not to say that he might not be good, but like, I think if you're looking at him as a Josh Lugg type of player.
Yeah.
At best, probably. And people know that Josh Lugg was fine, especially in his last year. I thought it was his best year at guard at Notre Dame. But, when he was playing tackle against the best guys, he struggled.
Right. And it's like Xander says he just needs to be adequate at right tackle. Like, I think he could be adequate. I think that's what he showed in the bowl game. He can be adequate. But, like, you're talking about playing against good teams with good defensive ends. Like, when you play that, then you don't want adequate. You want someone who's actually a talent there, And so that's kind of where we're at with it. It's not that he can't. I think the bowl game showed, like, he can be in there and play. Like
he could start for a ton of teams. I'm not saying that, but
he'd be a liability against the better teams.
And there's a standard at Notre Dame. So since 2017, they've had one guy who started at tackle who didn't end up being an NFL draft pick, and that's Josh Lugg. That's it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as right now, I would say Josh Baker not going to be an NFL draft pick, right? Like, so, I mean, if he starts and he's fine, that's whatever, but it would be better for Notre Dame if one of the young guys ended up developing and past him. Yeah. That's my opinion.
Setting aside Leonard, which transfer are you guys most excited to see in the spring? I would say Chris Mitchell, honestly, because he's the only one that I'm not. How does that translate to this level of football? Is he legit field guy? Like, can he legit get deep and spread the field and stretch the defense at Notre Dame the way he did at FIU? That, to me, that's the biggest thing. So he's the only one where it's like, I'm not totally sure what Notre Dame's getting there. So he's the one for me.
Yeah, I think those receivers, just like last year in camp, it was like, man, these guys aren't struggling against Notre Dame's corners because Notre Dame's corners are that good. So it's like, man, it's a different level. So now you're going to have to go against these guys. You're not going to face better corners all year than you are in practice, right? For Notre Dame. So that's definitely that was high on my list. And I would say RJ Oben too, just because I just want to see where he's at, and comparatively to say like JJB and that too. But but receivers for sure.
From the class Notre Dame just signed, whose senior film surprised you the most or made the biggest jump in development? I think Carson Hobbs is one. Just in terms of like, I wasn't sure about him, and now it looks like he's a dude, like he's a real guy, right? He's going to be a good player for them. I don't say Bryce Young because I think we expected that. I don't say like Kedron Young because I think we expected that, right? But Carson Hobbs was one where it's like, hey, like I wasn't sure, and now I think there's something there. You could say the same thing for Leonard Moore too. Well, I think those are two pretty good evals from Notre Dame.
Yeah. I would agree with you there. And then also I would just throw in probably Styles Prescott too, who I thought was going to make a jump, but I think he really made a pretty big jump, and like where I consider him kind of a different level prospect than I did before.
Yeah. Emil Wagner, why do you think he played right tackle most of the season, given athletic ability, need to gain weight? It seemed most people saw him as a future left. So why didn't he play? Why do you think he was at right tackle?
I don't really know, to be honest, because I don't know if it's like they didn't view him as like a future left tackle, or it might even be as simple as some guys just feel more comfortable playing one spot. And whether it's just like hands or feet or whatever that fit with what like Harry Hiestand mentioned that, as good as Quentin Nelson was, and he was obviously phenomenal, like he was like generationally good as a guard. Harry Hiestand was like, he could only play left guard. That was like, if you wanted him to be at that level, because when you tried him at other spots, he just wasn't as comfortable at other spots, right? Where there's obviously some guys like Zach Martin, it's pretty obvious Zach Martin could have played all 5 positions and been an All-American level player.
Yeah.
I mean, you've obviously seen that he's one of the greatest guards in NFL history now. So like, he could have played left tackle, right tackle, whatever, right? He's obviously played right guard for years. So, I mean, just some guys could do that and some guys can't. And I don't know if that's the thing with Wagner, if he's just more comfortable there. It's just like Lane Johnson for the Philadelphia Eagles was drafted as a guy like, I think we'll move him over to right tackle or to left tackle. He'll be the eventual left tackle. And he just never moved. And he ended up being there and was, I mean, he's probably a Hall of Famer at right tackle.
Yeah. Mitchell Vahalik is asking, is Bo Collins a summer enrollee? Nope. I think he's on campus right now. He's around. Yeah. So that's the deal. Mike in Oklahoma is asking, not sure if you saw Lanning's video about staying at Oregon. Do you have any level of belief needs to do that? Marcus Freeman needs to do that or should do that. In any event, is what I'd like to see on some level. I haven't seen it, so I can't comment. I've seen that it's out, but we've been recording since started, so I haven't watched the video. But
I don't think he needs to do that, because the other thing is, like, people were talking about like Lanning is the top guy. No one is talking about that. I mean, I think more people were surprised that Pete Thamel even included Marcus Freeman on that list. And I mean, whatever, no shots at Pete Thamel. The guy's got to do his job or whatever. But like, I think he did it probably because of the agent, like he's trying to the agent wants to get a nice little perk, little bit of a bump, right? He wants that commission to be a little bit higher. So
doing his job.
Doing his job, whatever. No hate and whatever. And Thamel's getting his sources and all that kind of stuff, whatever. No hate. I'm just saying, if Marcus Freeman made a video like that, Marcus Freeman would go from like, man, this guy's a cool dude and they've done really good stuff with this, to people being like, what? This guy's not even getting it'd be ridiculed by people outside of Notre Dame for sure.
Notre Dame does a better job of reading the room than that, in my opinion.
Yes.
Ian Y77, what is going on? I mean, in a good way, shelling out for an OC and hitting the portal this hard, and both great developments that I didn't see coming. What changed? I think we've talked about this on other shows. I think Notre Dame just I think they needed to be comfortable with what the landscape is and figuring out what it is. And then they kind of saw how things were working and said, okay, this is how we can incorporate modern sports, modern college athletics, specifically in football, and how we want to be a part of that. And I think that's what it is. It's just like, what are the buttons that we need to push? And I think they needed some coaxing, from some people, just like, hey, like, you guys need to get with it. Like, this is not going to work, like this grad transfer stuff with the portal and everything. You guys got to chill on that. Like, it's just not going to work out, right? And I think that was it. I just think they needed some coaxing, and just like to come to grips with the fact that this is the reality of the sport now, and this is where it needs to be. That's my take on that.
And the only thing that I would add to that, because I agree with that, is that I do think that there is a certain people around the Notre Dame program, people in the administration, people at Notre Dame, people who are money people who give a lot of money to Notre Dame, they like Marcus Freeman. Yeah. And they want him to succeed. So they don't want to see stuff like the Andy Ludwig situation happen again. And not that just it's a bad look for Notre Dame or whatever. They just don't want to see that happen to Mark Freeman. They want to say, here's the resources. We want you to succeed. We're going to give you everything you need. And that's what they're trying to do that. They're trying to do that. And I think that plays a part for sure too.
Yeah, you need resources. And one of the resource for you that you can use for one of your websites or your social media page is a video, a long form video. A highlight reel is a resource that you can use if you're an athlete. Anything you want video on, headshot for a new job. Those are the kind of resources that you want. And if you want to find those resources, then you can hit up vsrmediacompany.com, which is founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. We've got a super chat here from Christopher Morgan. Let's throw it up. As a diehard Notre Dame fan since I was 3 years old, now at age of 44, I know what that's like, my man, and have hated the SEC conference and Alabama, Saban, but at the same time, I do acknowledge that Nick Saban changed the face of college football. College football will miss you. Yeah. Thank you for the super chat, Christopher Morgan. I really appreciate that. And I agree. Like, look, whatever you say about Saban, the man changed the sport. Like, he did. Like, his defensive structures, this defense and the way that he calls defense and the way he set up defenses and a lot of their sim blitzes, corner blitzes, cornerback play, secondary play. He's just a true pioneer. Like, you gotta give him props for that.
Matchup zone stuff,
yeah,
definitely big thing. But I would say even with that too, first of all, it's incredibly hard to win in college football in any era. But in this last 20 years, it's incredible how things change from 3 years from here to 3 years from now. Wow, there's just been huge thing. So he had to go through, okay, hurry up, no huddle. Because remember, he was on it, being this is ridiculous. Whatever, the speed that these guys are playing and whatever, he was on that because he was now you got to play this many plays a game and all this kind of stuff. And the RPO stuff, first of all, them going heavy into RPOs, that helped get them more championships. That was something that he recognized. Him also recognizing well, you know what? I don't know if we can play the same way that we played before. We have to be this kind of offense. And all of a sudden they went from a 12 personnel, ground and pound, Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram type of, to all of a sudden it's just slinging it with Tua and Mac Jones and just like, Jerry Jeudy and Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith. And they became a different offense and they adapted to it. Right. And it was like, so him deciding that like, okay, I got to get these like kind of guys. Like I have to, that's why he brought it like Lane to even just be like, I'm sure I don't even know if he really even ever liked Lane Kiffin, but he was like, this guy can do this. And then that's why he brought in Sark. It's like he was building off of that. Like, so all of that kind of stuff that he did over that time. And let's not forget that the guy's like recruited at like the elite level for 20 years, for forever. And just always did it. And there were different changes. There were NIL. There was all the transfer portal. There was all these other things that happened. And they just signed the number 2 recruiting class in the country. Like, it was like the guy still had his fastball, like, I mean, maybe he isn't the exact same coach that he was, 10 years ago, but he's still bringing it. And with all the staff turnover, all that kind of stuff that he did, like, it's just incredible what he did. Plus all of the millions of analysts, a real personnel department. Alabama was doing personnel department. They had a big scouting and personnel department and recruiting department way before anybody else was really putting that total emphasis on it. And he helped take, and people had to do that. Everyone hiring all these people, it was like, you have to do it because it's like Alabama's doing it. If we're not doing it, how are we ever going to catch them?
Yeah. So it's so many ways that he changed the sport in the way that it's just like he made the sport better, to be honest. Like it in a way, like it was hard because, there was the balance of power wasn't there, but just in terms of like, it gave people something to shoot for. It's like, this is a standard, like this is where it needs to be. And everyone is kind of getting to that level. Right. So he's just been a great thing for college football, just period. So, it is what it is, right? He's leaving. Kind of people knew, like, it's getting to that point, right? 72 years old. But it's going to be an interesting time. It's going to be an interesting time for sure. Christopher Morgan, again, thank you very much for the super chat. That's very kind of you to do. And, just a little bit of a plug here for our channel. If you're watching and you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to this channel. Please like this show, right? Hit the like button. That'd be awesome. Just do it right now. Just go click the like button. Very easy to do. And you're going to hit the notification bell so you know whenever it is we are going live or when we release a video. I've got a video coming out tomorrow, podcast with former Notre Dame wide receiver Michael Young talking about Mike Denbrock, talking about Mike Brown, talking about his time at Notre Dame, being recruited to Notre Dame, kind of the circumstances that led him to transfer, going over to Cincinnati. It's a really good interview. I thought you did a great job. And I was like, just listening, I was very like, wow, this is really good information. So everyone's going to want to check that out. And thank you all again for your support as we go forward here. All right, let's get going with more questions. Tripper O, who are our starting linebackers against A&M? Thanks so much for what you do. Best in the business. Go Irish. All right. I think we'll say Kaiser. I'm going to say Kaiser is one of them. I'm going to go in. I'm going to say it's Kaiser, Will, J.D. Bertrand. I'm sorry, not J.D. Bertrand. Drake Bowen, Mike. That's I'm calling the shot right now. That's what I'm going to say.
I mean, I think it easily could be those two. And I'd say out of today, that's what I would just guess. But it's just a straight up guess. Like, it's just like, because the thing is that outside of like Kaiser and kind of knowing that, like, well, he's returning. This guy's played a ton of football. He's obviously started for Notre Dame before. All of these kind of things that would make you think that he's going to be one of the starters. I just go back to 2020 season. Jordan Gedmar-Keith is supposed to be the will linebacker. He ends up being the third. He's by the end of camp, he gets passed by Shane Simon and Maris Leofau. By the end of that year, Maris Leofau is the starter, right? Yeah. So next year, Maris Leofau breaks his ankle, breaks his ankle in camp, out for the year. Well, it's like, well, Shane Simon is obviously going to be the starter. He's a guy who's played a ton, whatever. J.D. Bertrand goes from like backup Mike to the starting will linebacker. It's like, you don't know things. I mean, it's going to be a competition. They're going to pick whoever they think is best. And right now, I mean, while I would say like I feel good about Bowen, and his potential and his career and all this, and I think I feel pretty confident that Kaiser, that the fact that they're bringing him back for an extra year, that he's probably going to be a starter at the beginning of the year, at least for the very first game, at the very least. But I don't know that Jaden Osbury might not be the best linebacker on the team next year, right? Or that KVA might not be like walk in this spring and you're like, God damn it, this guy's the Mike linebacker for Notre Dame. Like we just gotta wait and see. And I did mention Snead, who somebody already asked about, but like I think it's very, very open. It's very, very open.
Yeah. But I just think Drake Bowen's a dude. I think he's a dude, and I think he's barring 100 things that could happen between now and then, I just like him. I like him. I think he's going to be good, and I'll bet you KVA is in the 2 deep as well. From Jeffrey Veroni, I think he's going to be in the 2 deep as well. He'll find a way because he's also a dude, and that's a good thing to have at the linebacker position. 1980 UI grad going into next year. Where are we clearly not championship quality based on position? And if we aren't, do we have the young talent to get there by the end of the season? Which position groups do you feel confident will play at a playoff contender level last year? We answered a lot of this in the last show, I believe it was, Jamie.
Yeah.
One thing I'd say, we kind of talked about it earlier, is like the offensive line. I think that's the biggest question mark on the team. I think, what can Notre Dame get out of like Rod Hurd at safety? Like that's another one where it's like I want to see him. Like how good can him and Watts be playing next to each other in the secondary? I think that's a big deal. And then like just I think the O-line, right? Because here's the other thing. There's tons of questions about tackle, but like we can't just sit here and assume that like Billy Strouth is going to be great, and Ashton Craig is going to be great, and Pat Coogan and Rocco Spindler when he gets back. Like, there's a lot of questions on the offensive line. Just the level of play that they're going to be at, right? It's good that we've seen that they can be fine, right? Like,
yeah, they can be fine. Yeah,
we know they can be fine, but what's the level, the actual level on a game-to-game basis? That's the biggest question. And I think for the rest of them, I think we're all pretty confident, right? Like even though linebacker is a question, like I think we're confident they're going to find a couple guys there that can be good. But the O-line thing, it's lingering.
Wide receiver too.
Wide receiver is another one. So I think that's where we're at there. Mick Irish 3. And I love this question just because I just love this question for Jamie. I love that Jamie gets to answer this question. Compare Aaron Donald and Howard Cross. Very similar in height and weight. Jamie always says Howard Cross doesn't have the elite measurables, but Donald is the same height, weight, and dominates. Could Cross become Aaron Donald?
No. And I love Howard Cross. You know how much I love Howard Cross. Everybody who has ever listened to me on our Hit and Hustle, who's ever listened to Power Hour, who's ever read, any of my stuff on ISD, Howard Cross, I think, is a sensational player for Notre Dame. Great player. No, I mean,
Aaron Donald is like a Hall of Famer,
beyond a Hall of Famer. Like there's a special wing there's a special wing for like guys like him. He's in the wing with like Lawrence Taylor and like Reggie White and those guys. He's in that wing. It's kind of like how in BK tried to do this with Sheldon Day. And Sheldon Day, phenomenal player for Notre Dame.
Right.
Go back and watch the 2015 tape. The guy was balling. He was absolutely balling. Incredible first step. It ain't close. He was not close to Aaron Donald because Aaron Donald is, first of all, just take a picture with the guy with the shirt off compared to all these other guys who weigh the same. He is like muscles upon muscles and whatever. He's a different kind of freak in terms of just his strength and all of this and how he's built and whatever. And maybe his weight's not whatever, but he also has ridiculously strong advanced hands that he had almost immediately going into the NFL, which is rare. Look at his production in the number of tackles for losses he had in college. Like, he was in Ndamukong Suh. Remember how people were like, Ndamukong Suh, man, he should have won the Heisman that year. Aaron Donald's numbers, pretty similar to Ndamukong Suh. He was that kind of dominant, literally goes to the Senior Bowl in that thing. No one could block him except for Zach Martin was the only guy who had even a chance to block him. This was at Michael Hahn. It's funny. I didn't even see Michael Hahn's comment. Yeah. That's the exact same thing. Yeah. Oh, and they just both happen to be like two of the best of all time. So only an all-time guy could block him there. Yeah. And it's just a different level. It's just a different level. And it's absolutely zero disrespect to Howard Cross, who I think will probably be even better than he was this year for Notre Dame. When I think he's going to be great, and I bet he's going to play many years in the NFL if he stays healthy. But he's not Aaron Donald. I mean, Aaron Donald also 4'6", 840. Right.
Like, the only thing they have in common is their physical stature. Like, not even their physical attributes, like their physical stature, just period. It's kind of like when Matt is always texting me about like, oh, this guy is like the next Kyle Hamilton. It's like, please don't. Like, just stop. Right. And he's always going to do it because it makes me upset. He knows that. But it's like, it's just, you can't, because the guy is tall. Like, no, it's not. Like, it's a tall safety. There's a whole lot more that goes into it. And so it's just, look, Aaron Donald's, Howard Cross, like you said, great player. Aaron Donald is maybe one of the greatest of all time. So, Extra ND 1994. What do you think of the focus for spring ball for offense and defense? I don't know. I mean, install, right? Like, for offense, it's like, what your offensive line for sure, but like you got a new offense. You got to integrate Riley Leonard, that sort of thing. With defense, I mean, it's just finding your guys. The nice thing about the defense, you can just kind of status quo, like, build off of what you have, and you already have like a really good thing there. That's a nice thing for the defense. So that's my take on that.
I just think, just real quick, just developing the O-line on offense, getting comfortable with the quarterbacks, wide receivers. Just think Mike Denbrock kind of just establishing, who they're going to be, figuring out who they're going to be on offense, right? Because I think sometimes you go in and you think like, oh, we're going to be this. And you're like, man, all of a sudden, I didn't realize Jaden Greathouse was this good, or something like that can happen in spring. And then it changes what you think you're going to do on offense, right? And then I think defense, one of the key things they did last year was they cut out some stuff and they focused on different things that suited the personnel and also suited the opponents they were going to play. So I think you're going to see a lot of the same kind of thing. Like you kind of said, it makes sense too, because they have all these guys coming back. And then it's about the development of the young defenders on the team. And, obviously it's huge at linebacker because a lot of those guys are going to play a big role. But I would say the defensive line and in the secondary too, because guys like Adon Schuler and Ben Minich, it's like, this is huge spring for them. It's a huge spring for every one of those young guys who were freshmen last year on the defensive line. And it's just, want to see where those guys are at.
Yeah. Next question. And Thurman, when do you expect Notre Dame to announce the new football facilities? Spring? Soon?
I would guess spring. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I would guess sometime during spring ball is probably when they would.
What I would say is it's definitely happening. That's the thing that's going to get announced before summer. Very, very soon. That's going to happen. JDND, assuming Leonard wins the starting quarterback job, will Marcus at least give Angeli some playing time to reward him for loyalty? I know the key is to win, but Angeli should get snaps. It should not be a gift. We can all tell this kid can play. So basically it's like, should they play Angeli as I guess you stuck around kind of thing? Like, I guess, is there any import in using two, in your opinion? I don't. What's your opinion?
I'm not a 2 quarterback guy. I just don't think I don't think they need to do that. To be honest, it's like, the way I look at it. Okay, here's a perfect example. Nussmeier with LSU this year, who was like, man, he stayed, and that was a big deal. He stayed, and so they didn't play Nussmeier more because he stayed. They made it clear that he was the next in line or whatever. That everything was kind of set up for him to be that, and then obviously played the bowl game, had a good bowl game.
Yeah,
but it was like they weren't going to be like Jay Daniels. Let's chill on this Heisman season. So you could do it no, it's not how it works, right? Like if they're blowing out teams, yeah, he's going to play a lot more, right? But the other thing is, and I agree, Angeli can play. We also don't know. Kenny Minchie might be whatever. There's all these things you have to kind of play. So I think you got to hold off on that thinking.
I think the Angeli thing, and there's another question, and I'll just kind of answer this there because someone's asking. So there's another question that's coming up, and I'll read it, but I'll kind of answer it here because it all kind of blends in. Like someone is asking if Notre Dame should basically offer Steve Angeli NIL money just because he stayed, or
he's going to get it anyway.
Whatever,
yeah.
He's definitely getting it. Everyone gets it. Everyone gets it on the team, right? So the whole team's taking care. Would they give him a little bit more? I don't know, right? Like maybe, but my point,
he's going to get more than he got last year as the backup. 100%.
Yeah. What I would say is, and I've said it before, Angeli and Minchie and Carr, their competition is for who is the 2025 guy.
Yeah.
Because that's when it's like, I think Notre Dame wants to be done. I think they don't want to do the transfer quarterback anymore. I think they want it to be in-house. I think they want to develop in-house. I think they like Angeli. They like Minchie. They like Carr. They like Deuce Knight. They don't want to keep doing this. And so I think for them, it's like, hey, you want to be that next in line because that's going to be your job. And so that to me is like, that's your focus. That's your goal, right? I want it to be my job in 2025. That's how I would see it. And so I don't think they need to worry about give him time because look, Steve Angeli, right? Is he going to be satisfied with 2 series a game? No way, right? Quarterbacks aren't like that. They want all of it. They don't want some of it. They want all of it, especially Angeli. He's going to be a junior. He's going to be in his 3rd year, right? Now he's going to have 3 years of eligibility. So he has a lot of eligibility left, but he's been in college for a little bit now. He's not going to be happy with that, right? He wants all of it, and they're all going to want all of it. That's the nature of the position. It's not like wide receiver where it's you split reps. No. They want all. So I don't think you're satiating him by giving him a series or 2, right? I guess it's better than nothing, but I don't think it would really care. He would really care, and I just don't know the import of that. Loyal Stepson asks, given what we have seen and you've heard, who will be our guards and center next year? We've kind of talked about that. I think Ashton Craig will be one.
It's going to be a pretty big competition. Yeah. But I would say Ashton Craig, I feel pretty confident.
Ashton Craig will be the center. I think probably Schrouth in a guard. Coogan will be a guard, and then Spindler, right? And Spindler has to get healthy. That's the other part. It's who knows with his health situation. Since Howard Cross and Riley Leonard are coming back, does that raise the concern of Gabe Rubio and Anye transferring out? It better not.
I don't think so. It's not to say that maybe they won't, whatever. And look at what happened with Jacob Lacey, right? Where he was man, I'm not getting the PT that I wanted, and I want to have that extra year, so I did a 4-game thing. Could that happen again? I mean, it easily could. Could these guys go through the spring and be like, man, I'm not happy where I'm at? Yeah, I guess it could happen. But what is most likely, if that were to happen, that probably means that one of the younger guys is pushing them for reps or pushing them for time. And that's not a bad thing, and I also think guys who are in the situation of Mills and Cross, they're not overworking them in the spring.
No.
So those guys are going to get a ton of reps in the spring and chances to kind of establish themselves. And I think, and also too, like I think those guys are both Notre Dame guys. Like they're like they like being Notre Dame football players. They love Notre Dame and all that, and I think that plays a part in it too. They're not guys who are, me guys. Not many defensive tackles are me guys, anyways. But yeah. So I just think that, I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility that someone but that could happen anywhere, right? Like it just all Scully went from like, man, we're excited about the thing, and then he got a concussion, and then it just like, yeah, he's out, right? Like, just you don't know what can happen. Stuff can happen.
Yeah. Next question from Mobster. I've heard some people comment that Michigan's O-line is limited athletically. If this is the case, can you describe what they have done to be so effective over the last 2 years? That's a good question for Jamie.
Well, they play incredibly well as a unit. I think that's the one thing. Like, look at how well they work together. And it's because they have a ton of experience, right? They have guys who have started multiple years together. So that's the biggest thing, is that all these guys have played together. They've been in the system for years and years. And then the other thing is Sherrone Moore is a really good offensive line coach. So he's done a really good job coaching them. They're very technically sound. They brought in transfers who have had a ton of experience too. So guys who are like established guys who are good players already, who've been starters at other Power 5 programs, they come in to augment and like just, help complement the players that they already have. So they got that too. So they're not playing a lot. They haven't played a lot of young guys that are like, this guy's not ready for prime time. So they've had all this like they've had a veteran offensive line for 3 straight years. Like, that helps. That is huge, right? And that's part of it. The other thing is they don't, it's not like all these guys aren't the greatest athletes. Yeah, they're not like the credible. They don't ask them to do stuff that they can't do, which is like one of those things which was always the dumbest thing ever. And I'll never get over it at the beginning of the 2021 season when they're like, guys, we got to go the outside zone with Josh Lugg. And we got to do like, it's like, this guy can't reach those good edges. He can't. That's not what he works best at. And when you ask that guy to get out wide and he couldn't do it. And that was just not his game. And as soon as they switched and they were like inside zone duo, you're like, man, Josh Lugg's playing a lot better. Yeah, no crap. They're not asking him to do stuff that he isn't good at. And that's one of the things that do with Michigan is they like focus on what they're really, really good at, hammer it home, and don't veer from it.
Yeah. All right. That's enough Michigan praise for today. Future Domer says, wouldn't it be a good idea for fun to compensate Angeli so he'll get stay as an insurance policy? We just talked about that. He will be funded. They will fund him. Irish Calexico, how do Coach Freeman, Rudolph and Denbrock elevate the line play over the last year to be a playoff contender in 1 year? This group is the biggest unknown on the team. I think you just talked about that, right? Like figure out what they can do. And by the way, this is what Michael Young, speaking of my interview with him, he talked about this with Mike Denbrock yesterday and just like what made him a good OC at Cincinnati. And he talked about how he was able to identify like, okay, what is the quarterback good at? Right. And it's like, okay, the quarterback can do X thing. So we're going to do X thing. And we're going to make sure that all the wideouts and everything else is like kind of geared towards like making that situation as best as it can be. Like, it's like finding out what my guys can do. And then we're going to build the offense around that and then like drill it. Right. Like not just like throwing some things at the wall, like actually like drilling down on this is going to be what our offense is. It's going to be our identity is. Said he was really good at that. Really elevated the whole team because if you recall, like that offensive line wasn't the best group, right? They didn't have the best offensive line at Cincinnati, but they made it work because he was able to determine like this is how to best utilize them, how to mitigate their weaknesses and emphasize their strengths. So he talked a lot about that, and I think that's the name of the game, right? Just like what can these guys do, just like Jamie said, and then have them do that thing over and over again.
Yeah, so and I think that's the one thing too so Denbrock is going to adapt to them, and the other thing is that it's identifying which guys are going to be the best as the season goes along, and which are the 5 best and which are the guys who are your best guys. So in other words, I already think like them deciding that, you know what, we think Charles Jagusa is going to be the left tackle next year. So they made him start in the Oregon State in the bowl game. That's what you got to do. You have to be like, if you think this is what, this is what you want to happen, you think this guy has the most talent, get him in there now and start working him, because that's where you have to go. And I think that was like one of the things in like with Jeff Quinn in 2021, Joe Alt was like better than some of these other guys. It's like they waited to put Joe Alt because they didn't want to have like 2 freshmen starting or whatever. They didn't want to kind of put him in too early, but it was like, he was just so obviously better than, Tosh Baker and Michael Carmody. So what are you waiting for? Right. It's just like, get in the right, or even having Zeke Correll at guard there and not knowing that. Like, you have to know your own team. You have to understand your roster deficiencies and what you can and can't do. And I think Denbrock has a good understanding of that. Also, he is a guy who has coached offensive line. He understands line play. I think that is something that can help. Now, I don't know if that all of a sudden, just because of all these things, it means that they're going to be like, get ready, Joe Moore Award finalists, because I mean, they are losing Joe Alt and Blake Fisher, and we still got to figure out all these other things there. But I do think that there's reason for optimism there.
Yeah, agree. Absolutely agree. Let's just open this up here. Let's see. Wink 67. Let's do it that way. Have you heard anything about contract extensions, not only for Al Golden, but also any other assistant coaches? The NFL crazy season is starting with 7 head coaches opening. I think it's a given that there will be NFL interest in at least several of our coaches. We've also talked about this some. Doesn't matter. I think it's been mentioned, like, Al Golden has agreed to a contract extension. He's not going to sign that contract extension until he knows he's actually not going to get a defensive coordinator job in the NFL or anywhere else, right? It's the same thing with Denbrock. It doesn't matter whether they agree or whatever the case may be. Like, Notre Dame will extend those guys, whoever it may be. They will. But if they want to take another job, that's a promotion, they're going to do that, right? So that an extension isn't going to prevent that. It's not like, oh, well, the Bengals offered me to be their defensive coordinator, but I signed this extension, so I guess I can't. No, that's not going to happen, right? The extension is not going to be done until hiring season is over in the NFL. So, doesn't matter. And I would expect Notre Dame to lose a coach. I don't know who. I don't know for what reason or whatever. I don't know who, but I would suspect that they will. That's my call there.
Well, I think you just look at Brian Mason last year, right? Like, yeah, they were going to give him a big raise, and I'm sure it was probably already agreed to, and just he got an opportunity to go to the NFL and he took it. And that's kind of where it landed.
Yeah, and that's just the nature of it. DT Fennel, how upset will Mr. Frank be when Kyren Williams is the main reason the Rams eliminate the Lions in postseason play this weekend? A real quandary. I don't know. I assume he won't be very happy, but that's the plight of a Lions fan, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just that, but
he's
it's like
used
Matt
to
Stafford. He's got a lot of stuff going on. There's Matt Stafford, right? There's that, the chutzpah there. I mean, it's just like there's a lot of stuff going on, for Lions fans and with Jared Goff as well with the Rams. There's just a whole bunch of storylines there. It'll be interesting. But yeah, I'm sure he'll be upset. Fire off some upset takes on that. But it is what it is. If it is Kyren Williams that does it, I guess that would be a little bit bittersweet for him, right? Like bitter because you lose, but Kyren Williams, everyone wants to see him succeed.
One of Mike's favorites for sure.
Yeah, everyone likes Kyren Williams. GV SND. Is there a player or two on the roster that you might project to make a big jump on the depth chart? I have in mind offensive linemen in particular. Who are you thinking about, Jamie?
I mean, make a big jump on offensive line. I think it's completely up in the air, right? Like I think that's one of the reasons why you go through spring ball and you find out where all of a sudden, someone just comes out and all of a sudden you're like, wow, Sam Pendleton or Sullivan Absher, right? Like that. And that happens all the time. Because here's the other thing. Pat Coogan, zero people talking about Pat Coogan heading into, man, I think Pat Coogan's going to win one of the guard spots. And he did, did anyone think you're like, I really think Pat Coogan's going to beat out Billy Schrauth, right? And even though there was a lot of people who were kind of poo-pooing like what Spindler could do, I know that we were like, no, he's a contender. We had said that he was going to be a contender to compete there. But still, like he was a guy that people weren't sure about. So it's just a lot can happen there, but I just think it's just too premature to say like, I haven't heard anything to the point that we're like, man, look out for this guy, other than like, Jagusaw, who everybody kind of knows. But I would just say on the roster period, I think Boubacar Traore's would be my guy to look for. Not that that's surprising because I've hyped him up quite a bit, but like, I think that he would be the guy.
Yeah. Boubacar Traore. You know what? I'm going to monitor the Adon Schuler situation. I think there might be something there. I mean, I've already talked about Drake Bowen, right? I think there's some obvious people like, like Christian Gray or whatever. Like that. That's not. But I would say Adon. I'm gonna monitor Adon Schuler, as a safety, right? I just think physically he's got it, right? He's just got to figure out, the position. Right. And, become a better positional player from that point of view. But I think he's a good player. So I'm going to monitor that. And we're going to keep an eye on that sort of situation there. But good choices from you as well, Jamie. Sneaky Pete 74. A bit off kilter here, but what do you think will happen with regards to Michigan's scandal as far as NCAA punishment now that the cheaters are the cheaterines are champions? Also, what do you think the punishment should be? Thanks.
I mean, I don't even know what the punishment should be, to be honest. Like, I think the one thing I've heard is that there's going to be like way more that comes out about it. Yeah. There's going to be way more that comes out about it. It's like we've only scratched the surface of like all the things. That's why people who are being like, well, it was fair and square at the end. It's like, well, let's wait. Let's wait until everything kind of comes out. And then if people find out that it was like way more wild than Connor Stalions, just the stuff that we know, then it could be a lot worse. I mean, my guess is what will happen is that like Jim Harbaugh will get a show cause penalty and won't be able to coach, but he's going to be in the NFL anyways. Like, I don't think he's going to be there. So I think what will be interesting is to see if like some of these assistants get show cause and then these guys, because the idea that these guys weren't in on it is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, they were all in on it. Do I think the players do not deserve to get punished for it? I don't think it's fair. Just like I think like even like taking away wins, it's like, what does it matter? They already played those games. Like, it's just even if you give those wins to other people, it's like it doesn't make up for it, later on, just so I don't know what the best thing is. I have and to be honest, who the heck knows with the NCAA of what's going to happen too, because they obviously like, they like went like full, like way probably too hard on USC when all that happened. And then you get like North Carolina and they're like blatant academic cheating scandal. And they're like, yeah, cool. You're good. Like, it's like, what? Like, you have no idea what is going to happen there. And to me, it's like the NCAA just feels more toothless by the day. Like they and they don't even like, it's not that they don't care. They wish they could, but it's just like they have less power than they ever had. So it's just, I don't even know.
To go back to an earlier question, Ryan B is talking about Luke Talich. That's another one. I'm going to monitor Luke Talich as well. So Luke Talich and Adon Schuler, we're monitoring them. As far as what should happen,
Minich, sorry, too. I would say Minich was hurt during the year. So, but then he was healthy for the bowl game. I mean, I really like Ben Minich. I think Ben Minich has got a shot. So, I mean, the guy, I think he's a guy worth monitoring.
We're monitoring the safety situation. That's going to be heavily on our radar. As far as what should happen to Michigan, perfect example, right? Like ESPN. I was reading a little bit about this. They basically use fake names to get their on-air talent Emmys for some specific reason, and they did it as a network, right? So the people involved didn't know, right? So Lee Corso, Desmond Howard, Kirk Herbstreit, like there's no evidence that those people knew that ESPN on their behalf was turning in fake names. There was some rule in the Emmy bylaws, like you on-air talent can't or couldn't before that. They couldn't win awards for whatever reason. So it was discovered. And what happened? Corey Flynn says, pull their trophy. They did. They gave the trophies back because they're ill-gotten trophies. That's what happens when you cheat. The thing you gained by cheating gets taken away. That's what happens.
Not Houston Astros, but yeah.
I'm just saying, like, that's what should happen. Like, it's not complicated. It's in the whole, every time you have an ill-gotten gain of some kind, that thing that you gained is taken from you when you cheat. When Ben Johnson wins the 100 meters and is caught with steroids, what happens?
Take away his gold medal
back. Not just that. If you are a relay member and someone on your relay team gets popped for steroids, guess what happens? You have to give your medal back. You cannot keep the thing that you gained from cheating, regardless. Like the Emmy thing, right? Like the people say, oh, the rule is arbitrary. It doesn't matter, right? Like the rule is silly. It's a silly rule, and it's not even a rule anymore. On-air talent now can. But it was a rule then. It was an ill-gotten gain. They gave the Emmys back. They gave their awards back. That's what should happen. That's what happens in the world if you cheat. And if you gain something you shouldn't from cheating, you have to give that thing back. It's forfeit. Doesn't count, right? That's what should happen.
Do you agree with that, with the Olympic stuff specifically? That's a great example. Great.
It's not even a debate. That's how it should be. Like it's not controversial to say that. It's like that in every walk of life. So that's where I'm at.
I just want to mention too that there was a Canadian Olympic athlete who finished 4th in a competition in the Olympics. I can't remember what sport. It was a winter sport. And they ended up getting a gold because gold, silver, and bronze all cheated. And they got gold, but it was like years and years later. But it's just, that's the way it should have been, because she didn't cheat and the other people did. So
So that's how it works in the world. And Thurman, would Saban be a good commissioner for college football? No,
probably not.
No, these guys are coaches. They are not commissioners. And not just that, he's like 72. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to go play golf. God bless him. Go play golf, man.
Name a good commissioner in any sport. Just name one.
That's a good point. So on that front, it might as well be Nick Saban, right?
It's a tough job, and I definitely just a coach wouldn't be qualified for it. I don't know. I don't know who would be the right person. I don't think it would be him, but I mean, there's a lot of bad commissioners out there.
A lot of bad commissioners out there. Perone, this is our final question. As time goes on, it seems like Bayless and Freeman parted ways more than Bayless left for personal reasons. Is this the case? Did Freeman want to go in a different direction than what Bayless preferred? I don't know what this means as time goes on. I don't why.
That means what?
I don't know what time has to do with it. Okay. We've answered this a lot of times on the show. Whatever people are conjuring up as far as like Bayless and Freeman, it's not that. It isn't that. There was not a rift. There was none. It's nothing. Look, if you are working in an office or a job or whatever, and it's like, hey man, like, do you hear what happened? No, like Jamie quit today. He did? Yeah, he did. Oh, why? Like, what happened? Was he unhappy? It's like, no, it wasn't that. I just heard it was like a personal thing. And he's just not talking about it. And I talked to Mike, and he said, no, it's just a personal thing. It wasn't anything. And once you hear that, then it's like, okay, if he doesn't want to talk about it, and if it's a personal thing that has nothing to do with the workplace or anything, then you drop it. It's done. Like, it's not my business. And that's where it is with Bayless. Whatever it is, it's a personal thing. It's not our business. It's not a rift. It's not a football thing. It wasn't a disagreement of any kind like that. It was just whatever happened with Bayless in his life, whatever it may be. I don't know what it is, but it's something that I have stopped asking about because it's not our business. It isn't.
And people love the conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
They just love them. They love them.
Yeah.
But somehow it's like, did he really want to go in the other direction, but decided to do it at an inopportune time without a replacement in place? Like,
right.
No one would ever do that.
Right.
Like, people don't need to ask about Bayless again on this show. You don't even ask about
story. There's no story. There's nothing to say. There's no answer.
Even if he goes, because I know his name was mentioned for a couple of like openings or whatever. I don't think he got any of them as far as I know, but like he was named for like a couple openings for strength and conditioning jobs or whatever. Even if he does that, that means nothing to what happened at Notre Dame. It means actually absolutely nothing. Just kind of like how, with David Cutcliffe, if you recall that, it was he had a health thing. It was like a serious thing. There wasn't some kind of nefarious plot there. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, now he's healthy enough. And he just decided to, and coach. And then all of a sudden he's coaching Duke, right? Like, it's how it is.
Yeah, the fake name thing. Kirk Henry, they used. Lee Clark. Dirk Howard. Good stuff.
Oh,
it's good stuff. Congrats to ESPN for just being an absolute clown show. Really, really enjoy that. So, all right, that's going to do it for today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Marathon show. Had a good time. A lot of good questions. We'll be back next week talking about something. Something will come up, and we'll talk about it, and then we'll get into that. Maybe we'll talk about whoever Bama hires as their head coach. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you haven't done so, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like. Please hit the notification bell so you know whatever it is we are going live. Have a great weekend, everyone. Have a good weekend watching the NFL games, and we'll talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.